It's a chilly evening, February 13, 1935, 6:10 p.m., Flemington, New Jersey, and a jury has just delivered its verdict in one of the most infamous trials of the 20th century. Bruno Richard Hauptmann, a 35-year-old German immigrant, stands before them, accused of kidnapping and murdering Charles Augustus Lindbergh Jr. The courtroom erupts in a mixture of gasps and murmurs as the foreman reads out the verdict, guilty of first-degree murder. The weight of justice is about to be served, and it's a verdict that will send shockwaves across the nation. As Hauptmann's face falls, the magnitude of his crimes hangs heavy in the air. The scene before us is one of utter devastation. A once peaceful suburban home, now a crime scene, lies in shambles. Police investigators comb through every inch, searching for evidence that will lead them to the perpetrator. The windows are open, the curtains are torn, and the room is in disarray. A faint scent of baby powder lingers in the air, a haunting reminder of the victim whose life was so brutally cut short. The very spot where the Lindbergh baby once slept now seems like a macabre altar. We see Bruno Hauptmann, his rugged features etched in a mixture of fear and desperation. His eyes dart nervously around the courtroom, as if searching for an escape, but there is none. He stands tall, a towering figure in his black suit, a stark contrast to the frail, defenseless baby he's accused of taking. His hands, large and calloused from years of manual labor, hang limp at his sides, a stark reminder of the cruel fate that awaits him. His face is a mask of anguish, a testament to the horrors he's accused of committing. Eyewitnesses claim to have seen Hauptmann lurking around the Lindbergh estate in the days leading up to the kidnapping. They describe him as a tall, dark-haired man with a foreign accent, often lingering near the baby's room. The neighbors reported hearing the sound of a car screeching away from the scene of the crime, but no one saw the actual act of abduction. The only clue was a ransom note, left on the windowsill, demanding a staggering sum of money in exchange for the safe return of the baby. The ransom was paid, but the baby was never seen alive again. Before we go further, hit subscribe and the bell. We post new cases every single day. If you're new to our channel, consider joining our community of true crime enthusiasts. We delve into the darkest corners of human nature, exploring the complexities of our own hearts. By the end of this episode, you'll be left with more questions than answers, but I promise you, the Lindbergh case is a story that will leave you on the edge of your seat. From the streets of New Jersey to the international spotlight, the Lindbergh kidnapping and murder will leave you stunned and disturbed. Let me take you back to the very beginning of this story, a time when the Lindbergh family was at the height of its fame and prosperity. Charles Augustus Lindbergh Sr., the aviation pioneer, had become a household name after his historic solo flight across the Atlantic. His wife, Anne Morrow Lindbergh, was a talented writer and a renowned aviator in her own right. Their son, Charles Augustus Jr., was the apple of their eye, a beautiful and bright-eyed baby who brought them unparalleled joy. Little did they know, their lives were about to take a drastic turn, one that would shake the very foundations of their world. The Lindbergh baby's abduction would become one of the most infamous crimes of the 20th century, a tale of tragedy and betrayal that would haunt the nation for years to come. In the weeks leading up to the kidnapping, rumors began to circulate that the Lindbergh family was being targeted. The family lived in a sprawling estate, Highfields, in the heart of New Jersey, a place where the air was sweet with the scent of blooming flowers and the sound of birdsong filled the air. It was a tranquil oasis, far removed from the hustle and bustle of city life, the perfect place for a family to raise their child. But beneath the surface, tensions were running high, and the Lindberghs' wealth and fame had made them a prime target for those seeking to exploit their vulnerability. The stage was set for a tragedy of epic proportions, a drama that would captivate the nation and leave an indelible mark on the collective psyche of America. Charles Lindbergh, the famous aviator, was the central person in this case. He was 41 years old at the time of the kidnapping. He resided with his wife, Anne Morrow Lindbergh, in their home, Highfields. A 20-room mansion located in East Amwell, New Jersey. He was an American hero and a household name. As the husband of aviator and Mauro Lindbergh, Charles Lindbergh led a busy life. He spent most of his time writing and giving public speeches. He was known as one of the pioneers of American aviation and had received numerous awards for his bravery. The couple had 2 children, Charles Augustus Lindbergh Jr. and John Lindbergh. Charles Lindbergh was a well-respected figure in society and was often in the spotlight. Despite his fame, Charles Lindbergh was a likable and relatable person. His love for his family and his dedication to his work made him a sympathetic figure. He was often seen as a humble and down-to-earth person who remained grounded despite his fame. His love for his wife and children was evident in his actions and words. He was a devoted father and husband who always put the needs of others before his own. Charles Lindbergh trusted his nurse, Betty Gow, and his lawyer, Dudley Mayer. He also trusted the local police department and its investigators. He often left his home and family to give public speeches and attend social events. In the months leading up to the kidnapping, Charles Lindbergh was preparing for a new book. He had become increasingly busy with his public appearances and writing. As for the months leading up to the kidnapping, the Lindberghs had been experiencing some financial difficulties. Charles Lindbergh's public appearances had been generating a lot of interest and attention. The couple's social calendar had been filled with events and parties. They had also been facing some marital issues due to Charles Lindbergh's busy schedule. The tension between the couple had become increasingly strained. Some friends and family members had expressed concerns about the Lindberghs' marriage. They had noticed that Charles Lindbergh and his wife were not as affectionate as they used to be. Some had even noticed that the couple was arguing more frequently. The tension between the couple had become a public topic of discussion. Some people close to the couple had expressed worry that the marriage might not survive. The nurse, Betty Gow, had been the first person to notice that something was wrong. She had been the one to discover that the baby was missing. She had called for help immediately, but it was too late. The kidnapper had left a ransom note demanding $50,000 in exchange for the safe return of the baby. But would this note be the only sign of their involvement? The local police department was called in to investigate the kidnapping. They searched for any clues that might lead them to the kidnapper. They combed the area around the Lindbergh home but found nothing. The investigation would take months to complete, and it was far from over. But who was behind the kidnapping and would they ever be caught? On the night of March 1, 1932, a storm was brewing over East Amwell, New Jersey. The weather was gloomy, with heavy rain and strong winds. Highfields, the Lindberghs' estate, was located in a secluded area surrounded by woods. At approximately 9 p.m., the house was quiet, except for the occasional creak of the old wooden floorboards. The darkness outside matched the somber mood that hung in the air. Just before the kidnapping, the Lindberghs' nurse, Betty Gow, had taken the 20-month-old Charles Augustus Lindbergh Jr. for a bath. After the bath, and Mauro Lindbergh, the mother, put the child back in his crib. The family had retired to their bedrooms, leaving the child sleeping in his room. As the clock struck 9 p.m., a nurse typically checked on the child before settling in for the night. Little did anyone know, their lives were about to take a drastic turn. As the minutes ticked by, something went terribly wrong. At around 9 p.m., Betty Gow realized the child was missing from his crib. She immediately alerted Charles Lindbergh, who quickly gathered the family's personal belongings and went to check the child's room himself. On the windowsill, a ransom note was found with poor handwriting and grammar. The note demanded a ransom of $50,000 in exchange for the safe return of the child. Meanwhile, family butler Ollie Whately began frantically searching the house and grounds. As a closer look at the ransom note revealed, a piece of the note caught the attention of everyone involved in the case. The handwriting appeared to be from a German immigrant named Bruno Hauptmann, but that would be revealed later on in the investigation. However, the most shocking detail that stands out is the amount of money demanded, $50,000 in cash. A sum so large that it would be impossible to obtain in the United States at that time, but this was just the beginning of the investigation that would unfold. What seemed like a clear-cut case would soon become one of the most complex and intriguing cases in U.S. history. This ransom note set off a chain of events that would lead to a nationwide manhunt for the kidnapper. The police first responded to the scene by conducting an extensive search of the Lindbergh's home and its surrounding area, working in coordination with the New Jersey State Police. They combed through the property, looking for any signs of forced entry or clues that may lead them to the perpetrator. The police were on high alert, knowing the Lindbergh case was a high-profile one that required swift action. They collected evidence from the scene, including the ransom note, the ladder, and the baby's blanket. Meanwhile, a fingerprint expert was brought in to examine the evidence. The key piece of evidence that changed everything was a partial license plate number that was discovered on the ladder. It was a crucial find, as it led the police to a gas station in Bronx, New York, where they were able to find a match for the plate number. A car was eventually found with the matching plate number, but it belonged to a man named John F. Condon, who would later become a key figure in the case. Condon's car was impounded, and police began to investigate him. He was a friend of the Lindberghs, and it was initially thought that he might be involved in the kidnapping. The police were soon swamped with leads and suspects, but it was difficult to narrow down the list. One of the main suspects was a man named John Murray, a gas station attendant who had been seen near the Lindbergh home on the night of the kidnapping. Another suspect was a woman named Betty Bolton, a nurse who had been fired by the Lindberghs just days before the kidnapping. The police also looked at a man named Arthur Kohler, a woodworker who had built a ladder similar to the one found at the scene. The list of suspects was long, but the police were determined to find the person responsible. The red herring in this case was the involvement of a group of German immigrants, who were targeted by the police due to a series of letters and clues that seemed to point to them. The investigation into the German immigrants, led by a detective named Walter Emerson, wasted months of time and resources. Meanwhile, the real perpetrator remained at large, and the police were no closer to solving the case. The German immigrants were eventually cleared, and the investigation was refocused on other leads. However, the damage had already been done, and the case was delayed by a significant amount of time. The twist or revelation nobody predicted was the fact that the actual ransom money was eventually recovered from the trunk of Bruno Hauptmann's car, which was a game-changer in the investigation. However, what's even more surprising is that the money had been partially disassembled and hidden. It turned out that Hauptmann had attempted to cover his tracks by taking apart the bills and distributing them in various spots throughout the state. But why did he take such a risk, and what led him to get caught? The truth behind Hauptmann's actions remains unclear, adding to the mystique of this infamous case. The ransom money discovery was a turning point in the investigation, and it ultimately led investigators back to Hauptmann's doorstep. They found a hidden stash of $70 bills in his garage, some of which were from the ransom money. When questioned about the money, Hauptmann initially denied any involvement, but eventually, he cracked under pressure and confessed to the crime. However, many believe that Hauptmann's confession was coerced, and that he was forced to take the fall for someone else. This raises questions about the reliability of Hauptmann's testimony and the fairness of his trial. The verdict in the Lindbergh baby case was guilty, with Bruno Hauptmann being sentenced to death for his role in the kidnapping and murder. Hauptmann's conviction was met with both relief and skepticism from the public, with some doubting the evidence that led to his conviction. Despite his conviction, Hauptmann maintained his innocence until his death, adding to the controversy surrounding the case.